I was too young then, maybe second or third grade, to fully grasp the gravity of being left alone. The memory doesn't burn as clearly now, but it lingers like a splinter beneath the skin. Something bad was coming. Mom and Dad picked me up, kissed my forehead, promised they'd be back before bedtime, and then drove off to some fancy party or fundraiser I can no longer name. They were supposed to return that night, but the storm turned savage. No TV in my room, so I sprawled on the couch downstairs, watching cartoons while chewing gum and pretending everything was fine. The sugar rush hit me harder than expected, and suddenly I was asleep. I forced myself off the couch and checked every window. Front door locked tight, back door sealed shut. Blinds, I remember them telling me to keep one light on just in case. She checked every window pane carefully, each one sealed tight. Still, the air felt colder than it should have been. She recalled her mother's checklist, the one that meant everything if she wanted to stay alone without being scolded. Her mother trusted her, and she wouldn't let her down, even if it meant facing the unknown. She sat up slowly, realizing just how violently the storm had grown. Not yet scared, but deeply unsettled. It wasn't just the storm anymore. A new mechanical noise began to echo, like gears shifting under pressure. She couldn't shake the mechanical groan. It was now keeping her awake, growing louder with each passing moment. She rose silently from her bed. Every step felt like crossing a minefield without knowing where danger lay. When I reached downstairs, I hid under the dining table. Only then did I start crying, not out of sadness, but because there was someone else in my house now. Someone who knew how scared kids get when left alone. And they were too far away to help. They came closer, heading straight toward me, hiding under the table. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my ears. I held my breath so hard I thought I might pass out. If that person bent down to pick it up, they didn't move, just stood there watching me through those muddy eyes. Eventually, they turned away. Footsteps stomped around the first floor for what felt like forever, then finally stopped at the front door. I waited silently until I heard it creak open again and then slam shut behind them. They were gone. But not completely safe yet. I picked up the wrench myself so my parents wouldn't find evidence if they checked later. Made sure the front door was locked tight before climbing back upstairs and falling asleep again. Everything went back to normal after that, except for me. For years afterward, I slept with a nightlight on, developed an intense fear of darkness, and no matter how old I got, it never fully faded away. They took effort because the memory wasn't vivid enough to scare them into believing me. Looking back now, keeping quiet was probably the worst thing I could have done. Nothing much had changed since that night anyway. It still haunted me like a ghost haunting its own childhood home. I learned my lesson: lock your doors at night. Years later, I became an adult with some pretty weird medical issues, panic attacks, fainting spells, breathing trouble. And one thing that made falling asleep impossible: rain, any kind of rain. Even light showers would keep me awake all night long. It wasn't a full-blown thunderstorm, but it was heavy enough to drown out every attempt at peace. I lay in bed for hours, tossing and turning as the drops patted against my roof like tiny drummers playing on a tin can lid. Eventually, I decided to go for a walk outside to burn off some energy. Colder than expected air hit me as I got closer. Rainwater seemed to turn icy instantly when it touched my skin, and then a screech rang out behind me. I spun around, heart pounding like crazy, as if some beast had just lunged from the bushes. It wasn't a dog barking either, more like something wounded, screaming in pain. After scanning the tree line, I saw nothing but heard faint movements deeper inside the park. Something strange was happening here. Then I turned back toward the street and found him sitting upright now, staring at me directly. Before I could react, he stood up and sprinted straight toward me with a devilish grin on his face, and in one hand held what looked like a kitchen knife. Up until that moment, I hadn't truly known what it felt like to fear your own life. My legs were weak from running so hard in mud, but somehow managed to keep moving toward the trees, hoping to lose him there. That is where the screech had come from earlier. I knew it, but I didn't care anymore. If stopping meant passing out immediately, then fine. 20 minutes passed before I finally stepped back into view, walking slowly through the woods, winding around past trails until I reached a clearing near the riverbank. Finally made it home, soaked to the bone and completely traumatized. I never got answers for anything that happened that night, especially not about that howl. It still haunts me even today. Nowadays, camping helps clear my head. Not crowded campgrounds or national parks, I mean remote wilderness, deep into nowhere where I can feel alone again like in childhood days. Particular story took place a few months ago after breaking up with my ex. Needed solitude so badly that one day I packed up my truck and headed out without planning anything specific. It wasn't officially marked as any kind of campground, but perfect for escaping civilization. The moment I turned down the path, however, I felt uneasy. 2 pickup trucks were already parked nearby, gray and white. I debated turning back for a second, but decided to push forward since chances were low. They'd be near enough to disturb me. After hiking maybe 15 minutes downriver, I saw two men fishing ahead of me. Later, I wandered down to the rocks near the riverbank where I noticed one of those men sitting alone across the water. He waved at me, so I waved back too, thinking friendliness was best approach. After answering him, he pulled out something from his jacket. At first, I thought it might be a phone, but then realized it looked more like a disposable camera instead. That was creepy enough already, but when I got back to my tent, sleep wouldn't come easily again. My mind replayed every word spoken during our breakup over and over. Eventually, something else started echoing faintly around campsite, footsteps carefully stepping through damp earth circling the area slowly. My stomach dropped instantly upon realization I knew exactly who it was. No fool would go into the woods alone without protection, and I wasn't any exception. There he stood, half hidden behind a tree, not smiling or scowling. He just stared blankly ahead like something inside him had gone missing mentally. For a split second, I froze. All thoughts vanished except one: how far was I from anyone who could hear me scream? "Leave now or I'll kill you," I said firmly, even though every part of me screamed otherwise. His face didn't change expression. Not even a flicker, like his words meant nothing to him whatsoever. After several seconds passed, he mumbled something about Ivan, discouraging him from coming here and that he had taken care of Ivan himself. I fired a shot straight up into the trees above his head. He stumbled slightly, clearly surprised by my move. Then I told him again, "Drop the axe." And he did. Relief washed over me, but still not safe yet. Made sure he took off shoes so they'd hinder his movement behind me, and checked thoroughly if he carried anything else on him besides that knife. Once satisfied, ordered him to enter tent and grab my gear. Watched closely as he fumbled through belongings, forcing him to toss them all onto ground where I could see clearly. Packed essentials quickly, while keeping watch over him. Jammed the axe into backpack tightly, and then threw his shoes far into darkness before telling him to walk in opposite direction. Kept flashlight trained on him until he disappeared from sight, then turned and ran back upriver as fast as possible, heart pounding violently under pressure of potential danger chasing me behind. Stumbled through pitch-black forest with rain pouring down sideways. The only thing I could hear was my own heartbeat and the sound of the river nearby. I kept moving until the light found my way forward, the only thing that kept me from being lost in darkness. I arrived at the truck. It was waiting, silent and motionless. Yet no one came for me. I packed fast, no time to think. Only instinct, I left behind silence. Once the signal came back, I spoke truth. Coordinates were all I had left. Time moved on. They never asked again. That's okay. I've learned peace and silence. But one phrase lingers. I took care of him. Who was he? What did it mean? I asked myself again and again. He took care of him. What was left? There were only a few answers, and one thing saved me: the axe in my pocket.